This is part of my rehydration program that I was involved in, or still am. And we're starting to scope out the next step. But this gully used to just drop water, whoosh, straight down.
From where?
From up on that mountain. So we've got to put a few more stones and rocks in there, but there's a bank. You can see that bit of a bank there?
Yeah.
So what that does is it sends the water that used to just go down this channel, and it sends it out the old flow line, and that way it's slowing the flow of the water down. And behind it is quite a lot of water. So what we've had here is you just had a gully that came down like that, and we've blocked it off there so that it sends the water out around the base of that terrace, and then it comes into where we drove over it. And then it goes out along the base of that terrace, and currently it's dropping into the gully just where you can see that bit of gravelly looking rock. And what I want to do when I get the earth mover here, we'll turn that into another bank and we'll send it out this side. And so it's just slowing the flow of the water down. And I'll show you a couple of other spots where we've done it further up. But even you can see here, because of the water that's being retained in this landscape, how much fertility's just staying here. We've got lots of young Angophoras recruiting.
Oh yeah.
We've got all sorts of things happening, lots of chocolate lilies.
Did they come back on their own?
The Angophoras? Well, this is the parent tree.
Oh, okay.
And it's an old mother tree.
Oh.
But if you look at the branches hanging down, this landscape's very wet underneath. And so it's what I'm trying to do is get it to regenerate to what it was when the first whitefellas got here. The first whitefellas got here, this would have been just, that whole creek flat down there would have just been a massive wetland. And some of the rumoured weight gains and livestock performance here in the first 25 or 30 years was spectacular. And then they just buggered it up. George.
Here is George.
Come on, buddy. Come on, George. Up you get. Up you get. Come on. Yeah, come on. Come on. Oh, you bloody wuss. Looks nice, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's beautiful. So that was all gullied.
Yeah, it was an incised gully.
What did you get in, a dozer or something?
Got a dozer in, and he, it was only about an hour and a half's work. And it's away. It's doing its job, and it's just slowly flowing out. Now,
does it roar down though from higher up?
Well, yeah. So when we go further up, I'll show you some banks up higher that are doing the same thing, and we'll probably put 2 or 3 banks between that one and the creek over there to really manage this whole sort of floodplain.
Yeah.
And then it's managing, holding the water in the landscape so that we can, saffron thistles. Even someone who's been in regenerative agriculture for 20 years can't keep the bloody saffrons away. That's a grass that is a First Nations people's grass. That's a tall oat grass. It's called Themata avanacea. And I was on a webinar with the guys from Black Duck Foods, who are an Indigenous food provider, and they kept talking about using various different millets and kangaroo grass as flour for flowers and bread making. And I said, well, why don't you use tall oat grass, Thermida avicenacea. And these guys just looked at me and said, you know about it? And I said, I grow it. Oh, it's very rare.
Is it?
Not really.
Oh.
There's lots of it, but most of the places it grows is on the other side of the road. It's an amusing grass in this. It marches to the beat of its own drum, and the key ingredient in its spread, reproduction, growth, all that sort of thing, is, if I go back to those 5 ingredients, it's less concerned about air temperature, soil temperature, photoperiod, and soil health. Its key driver is moisture. So because we've had good rain in September, here we are 6 weeks later. Now, if, as happened in 2019, you don't get any rain until the end of March, by the middle of May, it's... So if you wanted to set organise the harvester to come here, you'd have to say, mate, I'll ring you, be here 6 weeks after the next major rain event. And it comes in. Dick Richardson hates the Thermidas because they're so hard to manage.
Is that the type species?
Yeah, it's a Thermida. So there's it and there's only 2. There are only 2 perennial Thermidas, and that's kangaroo grass and tall oat grass. There's a whole pile of annuals which you get up in Queensland, greater grass and things like that.
Oh.
And as a colleague of mine said to me one day, she said, when you've got your kangaroo grass and your tall oat grass really bouncing away, you will know your landscape's pretty bloody happy.
Yeah, of course. That's a good indicator.
There's my cedar. I've got to take it down and get working on it. But I probably won't do much more multi-species cropping, except to keep the bloody clean energy regulator under control, because biological diversity here is pretty spectacular.
Mm. Yeah, there is a point, isn't there, when you just don't need to do any more multi-species, would you say?
Look, I think...
Or adding it?
I think really you probably only need to do it once or twice, maybe 3 times, depending on how badly degraded your landscape is, depending on what your goals are. This country was grazed probably 6 weeks ago, 5 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And it's probably 5 or 6 weeks away. Oh, hang on. 2, 4, 6. Yeah, it's probably 10 months away from being grazed.
2 months?
Yeah.
So as in you'll graze it for 2 months, or you'll be on
No,
off?
they'll be here for... They're in each paddock. We're working on a ballpark figure of a daily graze.
Oh, right.
Sometimes I might extend it, sometimes I might cut it in half. Sorry for the rough ride. These tracks have had quite a bit of water flow in them, so they've had a little bit of erosion, which is not common.
I was at somebody's, I cannot remember who said this, but they were presenting and they said, so why do you just always drive on the same tracks when you have miles of landscape to drive on?
Well, part of it is you're trying to avoid crowding and erosion issues, but you're also trying not to do too much damage to the rest of your plants. So I'm not sure. Just habit. You got to have some habits.
Yeah.
And not all of them are good.
Can you?
No, not all of them are good. So when I first came here, that plains grass was, and I wasn't joking, was up over my head, and mostly in a fairly lignified sort of state. The plains grass, if you let it get out of control and you don't graze it or burn it, which is what our Indigenous colleagues did, it will get out of control. Now what is there? Have a look down.
You don't worry about kangaroos?
I'd like to have either maremas or dingoes or something. There's no dingoes in this catchment that we know of. So this little section here is what I want this gully to look like all the way down.
Did you fill in that, or did that naturally fill in?
That bit in the middle was always there. The channel ran down here, under the base of this terrace, off the end of that, around in a big meander to the left-hand side of that water, and then you can see where it continues on down and bends back to the right.
Yeah.
So we blocked it off in both spots. That area out there now fills up with water, goes under the fence, goes out and around, comes back into the dam, and then spills out of the dam probably 2/3 of the way along and goes back that way.
Which way does that one?
I'll show you. You can stay there. So there's your tall oat grass.
Oh.
And I've seen it this tall.
Wow.
This fence is not on. That's what we're going to resolve.
Oh. Sorry. You're being a gentleman. I was like, oh, busy filming your feet.
It does happen, it does happen. Oh, George, how polite. So we're picking up water off the mountain there, and it comes down this gully, comes down over there, and by the time it gets down here, it's fairly moving. So we put that bank in there, and we could probably lift that bank a little bit, but what we're more likely to do is put another one in back there, and then I think there's 5 between that one and the bottom one, and then 3 on the other side. And that will change the whole hydrology of the area, because the water, instead of just going whooshka, will just go in, stop, in, stop, in, stop, in, stop, in, stop, in, stop, in, stop. And it may even run for most of the year, hopefully.
And when you stop the water, it actually has a chance to settle the sediment in it.
Settles the sediment down. The other thing it does too is not only does it go out there and out there, but it also goes out underneath. Because a lot of this landscape has a layer of this cobbled, because this is all basalt country. So that's a volcanic plug. There's a whole pile of volcanic plugs in the range over there. There's another 2 over there, and they're all various different basaltic outcrops. Really good soil, very, very high in magnesium, which we've got to amend. But it breaks down, it's sort of slowly broken down into rocks like these, and there's a layer of it, and so it forms the aquifer. So all we're doing is recharging the aquifer and holding water in that aquifer. Now that will enable this country to recuperate really quickly. When it started raining in January 2020, Nicky very enthusiastically looked at me and said, we've had 10 mils of rain, when's the drought going to break, and when are we going to start restocking? And I said, well, let's look at it in 6 weeks, and in 6 weeks, I think 8 weeks, we were fully stocked.
Had you got this done then?
No.
Oh, right.
No, it was on the plan, it just didn't happen. Trying to get earth movers to turn up when you want them to. So that white rock is what they call rotten rock, which is high calcium outbreaks. It's all through this country.
So it did run on this side.
So it ran, the incised gully ran down here around there. You can see the meander in it slowly. And if you look at here on Google Earth, I don't know that Google Earth's up to date with these, but you'll see the flow lines. Right, you, George. Oi. But a lot of these trees are the Angophoras, Angophora floribunda, and they are an indicator of water in your landscape. And these old blokes will start producing. There'll be a whole pile of little blokes probably on this side if we get enough northwesterly winds to blow the seed over here. So we can just go up to the bottom of those trees, and that's as far as we go to the west.
Oh, your boundary?
Yeah. And you can kind of sort of see that when you get up closer, because all of a sudden there's a totally different landscape. They tend to be far more set-stocked.
There's some flowers there.
Oh, there's lots of flowers here. Now those purpley fellas are chocolate lilies.
They're lilies. Because that's what people are noticing, there's lilies and orchids.
Yeah. And the chocolate lilies, Christine Jones was giving a presentation, 2018, I think it was, 2017, up near Tamworth. And she said to me when I walked in, she said, "What are you doing here?" I said, "I've come to learn something." She said, "But you know all about all the things I'm going to say." I said, "I'll learn something." And anyway, someone towards the end of things said to her, "How do I know when my soils are starting to really hit their straps? They're starting to look pretty good." And she said, and it must have been November 2017 or 18. And she said, this time of the year, when you go out into the paddock and you have a look, and you'll see there's a little purple haze, and it's chocolate lilies. And she said, then you'll know you're cooking. And I just went like that. And she said, "I'll bet you've got a bloody photograph of that too." And I said, "Yep." And I emailed it to her. And the really funny part was, I'd taken it about 2 days after she'd been here. She and Gabe and Cole Size had been here.
On property.
Yeah. And the photograph was taken from just down where we're going. And I just sent it to her. And I said, "You were here that day?" Almost. And it was 6 years ago today, because Facebook said to me, "Here's a photograph from 6 years ago."
And what was it, chocolate lilies?
And it was chocolate lilies.
No way! That's so cool.
And I had...
I've got something else. What's that funny, like, fluffy head that's about that long?
Narrowleaf clover. So, Trifolium angustiflorium.
A long flower, is it?
Yeah, I'll find some.
There.
There's heaps of it.
Is that
It
clover?
looks like it's prickly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that clover?
It's a narrow-leafed clover, as distinct from what a lot of people call hare's foot clover. Hare's foot clover grows in really horrible, hard country. Narrow-leaf clover grows all through where we're driving, and I've just been looking and seeing quite a lot of it. I'm now looking for some, and of course when I'm looking for it, you never see it. I don't photograph my thistles.
No, that's your saffron, right?
No, that's a Scotch thistle.
That's a Scotch. I'm not very good at my thistles, mainly because I don't see them very often.
Now here's a narrow-leaf clover, and if you feel the seed head, it's almost, not quite, if you feel that seed head, it's starting to get prickly, and as it ripens it becomes quite prickly, and the cows love it. And go off, and of course it just goes through the system, goes with the flow.
I've never seen that before.
I've not seen it. I don't think it's very common, but it's one it's a native, and it's obviously, as you can see, flowering and ready to start spitting seed out right now.
Does it fly in the wind, the seed?
Oh, not really.
No.
It'll just drop pretty much where it is, and you know the cattle will come through and they'll clean it up, and happy days.
Oh, that's it there as well, the pink leaf.
Pink leaf.
Just here.
Yes, that's probably a little bit phosphorus deficient. I'm not sure what causes that really, that pink mottling. That's a saffron thistle. But there's all sorts of medics and clovers, and a friend of mine is in the botany department at Sydney Uni, and she was up here one day just mucking around and ran a transect. And at that particular afternoon, we had something like 47 or 49 different varieties of plants just on a 50-metre transect.
50.
Different species. And if she came up and did it now, and that'd be, oh God, 17, 18 years ago. So if she came up and did it now, it would be pretty bleeding amazing.
What I'm loving is, like I've seen a fair few of regenerated paddocks, but this one is predominantly grass, actually.
Yeah.
Whereas a lot of them I've seen as predominantly weeds.
Well, weeds, don't forget, I've been doing this for 20 odd years.
Yeah.
So there's a fair few out there that have been doing it longer. You know, guys like George King and people like that. But I only mention George because he's now decided he's going to stand for the Cattle Council. Good on him. Get my vote, George. Save me having to do something like that. You know, someone told me today, oh, you need to spray out that bloody purple top verbena, it'll kill your cattle, you know. Yeah, right.
They don't need to, do they?
Oh, they do.
Oh, do they?
Oh,
My horses don't eat a lot of stuff.
But you have a look at these verbena plants, and they've been chewed off, and they're reshooting. So, you know.
But that's the thing, probably might not be very good for them if that's all they've got to eat. Have you got lucerne in here?
Yeah, it's the odd bit of that.
Was that
Lucerne?
when you planted?
No. I wouldn't plant. You couldn't pay me to plant lucerne.
Is that because it's a lower succession?
Yeah, that, and it also really buggers up your soil structure.
Does it?
Because it's got such a hydraulic suction, you know, it's got this massive pumping system that just draws water. Particularly in a monoculture, you'll find that lucerne basically makes it impossible for other plants to grow in a paddock full of lucerne. And of course, Fred Farmer's made that possible by spraying out to put his lucerne in and all that sort of crap. The lucerne you're seeing in this paddock has come in seed from lucerne that was planted over there or whatever. I won't plant it. I think it's a nuisance. I think it's a waste of time. And when you look at the diversity of things that we've got here at the moment, hey, why would you muck around with it? And the low succession issue is another one. Most of your legumes tend to be lower successional plants anyway.
You've got contour banks in here.
Oh, far too many.
You obviously didn't put them in then.
No, Silkon put them in the 70s and 80s.
Oh, that was for drainage though, right?
Yeah, we've got to have more, one gully rather than lots of gullies. Yeah, right, thanks guys. You see how we've got these lignified tussocks of plains grass?
Yes.
This is probably going to be there last year. But I can remember, if you look at that creek flat ahead of us, driving from about where this tank is just in front of us, across over to where there's a crossing down over there, or there used to be. And I had a guy that was working for me standing on the back of the ute. One tap, turn left, two taps, turn right. We did not know what was underneath it because I couldn't see anything other than this grass just bending over in front of the ute. That was how tall the plains grass tussocks were.
Wow.
Why would you want to go and plant anything else when you've got a grass like this? We'll have cattle here on Friday, Saturday and next week. We'll be working our way around these paddocks before I take them back for weaning and mucking around.
So you're moving them all in one lot with,
Yeah.
what did you say, 400 or something?
There's about 600 in the
600.
lot.
So they'll all come in here and they'll all...
Oh yeah, and when they leave here, you'll see what it'll look like. Because when you came in, you'll have noticed there wasn't a lot of grass in the paddock they're in.
It's funny, I did actually say they look like they need moving.
This afternoon.
Cool. I got that right. And so how long have they been in there?
They've been in there for 47 or 8 hours, but they've had 2 paddocks. So they've had their allotment. This is a paddock I can actually get 2 days grazing out of, so which means I need to split it in half. I'll probably split it in 4 and then just do 2 halves. If I suddenly speed up, don't panic, because there are a couple of boggy patches in here. We are down on the floodplain proper.
Okay.
And whenever you see those rushes,
Yes.
you just go a little bit faster, because otherwise you just go in. Just going to drop this power station off here, this energizer, because every time I put a fence across the creek at the moment, another log comes down. You are such an enthusiastic little fella. Eh? Oh, you wouldn't know what work was, would you, George? Life's a party. Life's a party, isn't it, George? Oh no, I'm pretty used to doing this on my own, without generally having George's nose stuck up mine. But so this is just a cage to keep the cattle out of the energizer. What are you doing, George? Cliffy, leave him alone. On you little buggers. Come on, up off. All right. Come on, George, let's go and move some cattle. Come on, bud, hop up. Yeah, come on. Come on. Good boy. Now that one is prairie grass, which is an imported brome, but it's really, really good tucker.
Imported what?
Brome grass.
What do you mean?
Brome's just the family.
Oh.
So there's a series of bromes, a lot of which are not particularly desirable, but that one is. It's one of those we've been managing for it for years, and we're finally starting to get somewhere with it. That's what we do here, we grow grass. And then we eat the grass with cows.
Do you do anything like Bricks test or nutritional value test? I don't know what that test is, but...
Well, Bricks is and the trouble with Bricks is you've got to have your tongue in the right place, you've got to have you've got to do it at the right time of the day, you've got to, is it sunny, is it hot, is it cold? Is the grass moving the sugars around faster than you're budgeting on? Blah, 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 blah. Oh, shit, it's all too hard. It's all too hard. We're starting a bit of a supplement program here for the cows. We're nearly there. This is why I keep growling about my missing sea minerals. There's some work done by a whole pile of different people, and the reason I say that, put it that way, is that I was listening to a podcast from a guy that I've admired from afar for many, many years, a guy called Will Winter, who's an American. He describes himself as an holistic vet, and he supports that claim by saying, look, I haven't held a needle or a vaccine gun or anything since 1997 or 9 or something. And then there's a conversation about what minerals are really critical for cattle or for ruminants, and that's copper, zinc, iodine and selenium. We had a selenium deficiency here that really manifested earlier this year. So...
Was that because there was too much moisture?
Yeah. Yeah. And so what I'm working on now is, and one of the other things that he said, you should always really have good quality, minerally diverse salt available, and apple cider vinegar. Sure. So we did a bit of research and did a bit more research, and we got our apple cider vinegar down from some outrageous price a litre down to about just under $2. And my sea minerals, I think they're going to end up landing here at about $1.40 a litre.
Are you importing those?
I'm not importing them. They're coming from, well, I am from South Australia. Yeah, they're foreign.
Yes. No, as in not from Canada or somewhere like that.
No. And my understanding of sea minerals comes from a couple of things. One, I used to have powdered kelp as part of a mineral ration. And I opened a bag one day, and one old Murray grey cow stood there, and I reckon if I'd have given her a bloody big poster-sized sheet of paper, she could not have inhaled it faster.
Wow.
Shit, right? I think it was about $60 a bag then. So anyway, I was talking with a guy called Jason Simmons up at Armidale, who's a really, really knowledgeable soil and nutrition and yada yada yada, and he's starting to rattle this, you need iodine, you need and you need apple cider vinegar and sea minerals like that. Have you been reading Will Winter stuff? He said, who's he? Ooh. The planets, they might be aligning here.
Yes, that's when you know you're onto something.
And he said, why? And I said, well, Will is a veterinary consultant for a mob called Thousand Hills, which are a big grass beef. They fatten about 250 cattle a week for slaughter, grass fattening, up in Wisconsin. And so, he's been playing around. It's a couple of really worthwhile podcasts on working cows. So if you look up Working Cows Podcasts.net, he's got 2 interviews on there. So you can just search through their episode list and it'll tell you, Will Winter, Steve Cody, whoever the guy is that's talking. And Will's a really worthwhile. He's an engaging speaker. He's a good communicator. Everybody's a kid, and he says, so I call everybody who's younger than me kids. And I'm kind of doing some rough sums. I said, even I'm a kid. So this paddock was under loosen when I bought the place, and it's never recovered. So you notice the difference in the grasses here compared to the other paddocks you've been driving through?
Yeah, absolutely. It looks like it's just been grazed.
Probably only fairly lightly, this one, because it looked like it had been grazed when they came in here.
Oh wow.
It was a mess. So this area was just under loosen, and it really hasn't recovered. It's still, the plains grass is sparse.
Oh, can you just stop so I can take some loosen footage?
Oh God, why?
Well, because you're talking about
On the noxious weed list. It is.
Is it?
I reckon it is.
Oh, well, okay, according to Craig's list.
Yeah. Bureau of Meteorology are talking that we're going to be wet for another couple of months.
Yeah, well, do you follow
Indigo Jones?
He's talking about years.
Wet?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Like serious wet.
He, I think, doesn't reckon we're in for major drought till the 30s. That'll suit me. If I get more seasons like this,
Yes. Yeah.
he's not as good as the original Indigo Jones. The original Indigo Jones was a true forecaster.
On
It
the
was-
weather?
Yeah. It was a real person. He used to write. He died about probably 25 years ago, 30 years ago.
Oh, so that's why he's using his name then, is it?
I don't know whether he's got permission to do it, but anyway.
Oh, okay.
It's this modern day and age, you just appropriate what you want to.
That's it.
But if you have a look down there to the left, you'll see where this water's just coming through. I think I'll be down here with some gravel when I get a chance to smooth that drain out. Well, let's go and move some cows.
Yeah.
So we've got between 14 and 18 paddocks coming into each of those water points. There's 6 of them like that, and then there's a couple of smaller ones that have got 2 or 3 paddocks coming into them.
So for that one, was there 4 paddocks or more?
There's about, on this one, there's about 14
Oh.
that feed off it. This one over here's got 18. That's the biggest one. Which amuses me because Dave, have you seen any of Dave Pratt's stuff? Dave used to be Ranch Management Corporation in the States.
No, I don't think I have.
It's worthwhile watching. He's a very good educator. He's a very good communicator. He gets the message across about ranching for profit. And he draws up a wagon wheel and he just says, now if this was 18 paddocks, not that I'd ever have 18 paddocks. And I'm kind of thinking I'd have 36. And,
Does he say it though to be funny?
well, I
Is he
think
being serious?
this is part of the issue. When I was talking about prescriptiveness earlier, where some of these people take, and he's very wary of it because he's been teaching for so long, that the students leave the school with a changed paradigm, but their new paradigm says, well, yeah, he says you wouldn't have 18 paddocks, so you might have 17. We were talking this morning about, I was talking with Anne actually, I said, you know, because she spotted the same thing, you know, this need for prescriptive, or this prescriptive result in what people are getting. And she said, yeah, I'm seeing that too. And I said, well, you know, a mutual colleague of ours has been whinging that he's only got 3 or 4 dominant species and he can't get rid of them. And I said, I'll tell you why, because he grazes like he thinks he was told to, and whatever he keeps doing that, nothing's going to change. Right. Oh, the management's home. So we'll go and move cows and then we'll come back and have a chat to Nick.
Cool.
And you can explain to her why you've got your ute parked almost in her garden. That's right.